She mistook a billionaire heir for the guy cleaning tables. But that mistake changed everything. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let us return to our main character. The gentle hum of voices and the soft clinking of silverware filled the air inside the Ashbourne, one of Manhattan's most elegant restaurants. Warm light poured from golden chandeliers, washing over polished tables that gleamed like mirrors. Every plate looked like a tiny masterpiece, and every guest seemed perfectly at home in luxury. But not her. Mia Carter stood at the entrance, her palms slightly damp against the fabric of her second-hand dress. The shoes she wore had tiny scuffs on the sides, and the reflection on the glass door reminded her that she did not belong here. Yet she needed this job. Tonight was her second week as a part-time waitress, covering an extra shift for a friend who had fallen ill. She brushed a loose strand of hair from her face, adjusted her apron, and whispered under her breath, "One more night, Mia. You can do this." Near the corner of the dining room, a young man in a white shirt and rolled-up sleeves was quietly wiping down a table. His dark hair fell slightly over his forehead, and he looked focused, almost too serious for such a simple task. Thinking he must be the new busboy, Mia hurried toward him with a smile. "Hey, let me help," she said, picking up another towel from the tray. "You are using the wrong motion. Circular wipes leave streaks. Here, like this back and forth." "Oh." The man froze for a moment, a surprised glint flashing across his eyes. No one had spoken to him that way in years. Still, he said nothing, only stepped aside as she wiped the table beside him. "You are new, right?" she continued, trying to break the silence. "Do not worry. The manager can be a little tough, but if you work hard, he warms up." He blinked once, clearly amused, then replied softly, "I will keep that in mind." His voice was calm, steady, and oddly confident for a busboy. She noticed his hands clean, unscarred, not the hands of someone who usually handled cleaning cloths or trays. But she shrugged the thought away. Everyone had a story. "So," she added with a grin, "first night nerves?" "Something like that," he said, suppressing a smile. "What about you?" "Oh, I have been here for 2 weeks, practically a veteran," she said with mock pride, then laughed at herself. "Actually, I work 2 jobs. This one pays for my mother's medication, and the morning one barely covers rent. But I like it here. People smile more around good food." He listened quietly, leaning on the polished surface as if every word mattered. She felt strangely comfortable talking to him, the supposed new hire. When the manager's voice echoed across the hall calling for staff, Mia straightened her back. "Duty calls. Good luck, rookie." She winked and hurried off, leaving him half smiling behind her. Ethan Cole watched as she disappeared through the kitchen doors, the towel still warm in his hands. The billionaire heir of the Cole Hotel Group, who had come to inspect one of his family's properties incognito, now stood speechless. No one had ever mistaken him for an employee before. And yet, something about the mistake felt refreshing. For the first time in a very long while, Ethan did not feel like a name on a magazine cover or a signature on a contract. He simply felt like a man, standing in a quiet restaurant, watching a girl with tired eyes and an honest heart do her best to survive the night. He looked down at the table she had cleaned. A small napkin lay folded neatly beside the salt shaker. A doodle drawn in blue ink, a steaming cup of coffee with a tiny heart above it. Beneath the drawing were 2 letters, M.C. Ethan smiled. He slipped the napkin into his pocket without knowing why. Some mistakes, he thought, were worth keeping. The city was quiet when Mia stepped off the late train that night. The wind carried the smell of rain and asphalt, and the glow of the streetlights painted long golden lines on the wet pavement. Her feet ached from the double shift, but she still stopped at the corner bakery to buy a loaf of day-old bread. It cost less than $1, but it was enough for breakfast with her little brother before school. When she reached the small apartment above a laundromat, she paused for a second to catch her breath. The hallway smelled of detergent and dust. Inside, her mother was asleep on the couch, a soft hum from the oxygen machine filling the room. Mia placed the bread on the table and kissed her mother's forehead. You worked late again, her mother whispered without opening her eyes. I am fine, Mom. The restaurant needed me, Mia said softly. She did not mention the man she had mistaken for a busboy. That moment still made her cheeks burn, but it also made her smile. She moved quietly to the small bedroom she shared with her younger brother, Liam, who was 10. He had fallen asleep with his homework still open, his pencil resting on the page. She gently pulled the blanket over him, turned off the desk lamp, and sat on the edge of the bed. On the nightstand lay her sketchbook, filled with rough pencil drawings of a coffee shop she dreamed of owning one day. The name was scribbled across the cover in her careful handwriting, Haven and Heart Café. She ran her fingers over the title, imagining it glowing above a real door, where people came not for money but for warmth. Her eyelids grew heavy. One day, she whispered to herself, just keep going. The next morning started with the sound of the subway rumbling beneath the street. Mia hurried through the crowded platform with a travel mug in her hand, the coffee lukewarm but strong enough to wake her up. She had only 3 hours of sleep, but she was used to that rhythm. 2 jobs, rent due every other Friday, and a stack of medical bills that never stopped arriving. At noon, she switched uniforms and worked a short shift at a flower stall near Madison Avenue. The older woman who owned it, Mrs. Patel, always greeted her with the same words. You have kind eyes, Mia. Keep them open. The world needs them. By evening, she was back at the Ashbourne. The restaurant was busier than usual, every table filled. As she tied her apron, her friend Kara nudged her playfully. You are glowing, what happened? Someone leave you a big tip? Mia laughed, shaking her head. No, nothing like that. I just met someone new. Kara raised an eyebrow. Someone as in a customer? Mia's face warmed. No, someone who works here. I think he is new. He was wiping tables last night. Kara frowned. We did not hire anyone new this week. Before Mia could reply, the manager called her to deliver a tray to the private section near the back. She balanced the silver tray carefully, weaving through the tables until she reached the last booth. The man sitting there looked up. It was him. The same dark hair, the same calm eyes. Only this time, he was wearing a tailored navy suit. Her heart jumped. The air felt suddenly thinner. Good evening, he said, his voice steady and polite. We meet again. Mia's throat tightened. You are not an employee, are you? He smiled slightly. No, not exactly. But you gave very good advice on how to clean tables. Her ears burned. Oh my goodness, I am so sorry. I thought, do not apologize, he interrupted gently. It was the most honest conversation I have had in months. For a second, they just stood there, the hum of the restaurant fading around them. Then she remembered she was still holding the tray. Your order, sir, she said, placing the dishes carefully on the table. He studied her face for a moment longer, then asked quietly, What is your name? Mia Carter. Ethan, he replied, extending a hand. Ethan Cole. She shook it, feeling the oddest mix of embarrassment and curiosity. He was clearly someone important, but he did not have the arrogance that most wealthy customers carried. Well, Ethan Cole, she said with a small, nervous laugh, I will make sure your table stays perfectly clean tonight. I trust you will, he said with a grin that reached his eyes. When Mia walked back to the kitchen, her friend Kara caught her sleeve. Do you know who that is? She whispered. That is Ethan Cole, the new owner's son, the heir of the Cole Group. The restaurant is part of their chain. Mia froze, the tray still in her hands. You are kidding. Kara shook her head. Wish I was. He is practically a billionaire. Mia's heart sank. Her friendly mistake from last night suddenly felt like a spotlight on her foolishness. She wanted to hide, but the shift had to go on. Later that night, as she wiped down the last table, she noticed a folded napkin near the corner where Ethan had been sitting. On it, in neat handwriting, were 5 words. Keep your dreams in sight. She looked up, but he was gone. Outside the window, the rain began again, soft and steady against the glass. Mia held the napkin to her chest, unsure why her heart felt both heavier and lighter at the same time. The following weekend brought the first sunlight the city had seen in days. Mia left her apartment early, her sketchbook tucked carefully into her bag. She was off work for a few hours before her evening shift, and decided to sit in Bryant Park, where she often drew buildings, faces, or little coffee cups with tiny hearts. The park was still waking up. Joggers passed by. A man fed pigeons near the fountain, and a violinist played a soft tune near the benches. For a brief moment, the noise of the city felt far away. Mia opened her sketchbook and began shading the outline of a small storefront, the dream version of Haven and Heart Café. She smiled as the image took shape. A shadow fell across the page. "That looks like a place worth visiting," a familiar voice said. Mia looked up. Ethan Cole stood there, dressed casually this time, his sleeves rolled to his forearms, a coffee cup in hand. The morning light caught the faint smile on his face. "Ethan," she said, blinking in surprise. "I did not expect to see you here." "I could say the same," he replied. "I usually come here to think. I did not mean to interrupt your work." It is not work," she said with a small laugh. "Just a dream I cannot afford yet." He tilted his head, curious. "A dream?" She showed him the page. "A coffee shop where people can feel at home. Simple meals, affordable coffee, and shelves of donated books. A place where no one feels out of place." He studied the drawing for a long moment, then looked at her. "You have a good eye for warmth," he said quietly. Mia smiled but quickly closed the sketchbook, suddenly self-conscious. "It is nothing, really, just something to keep me hopeful." Ethan sipped his coffee and said, "Hope is the one thing you cannot buy, but it might be the most valuable thing in this city." They spent the next few minutes in easy conversation. He asked about her family, and she told him about her mother's illness and her little brother's dream of becoming an engineer. She apologized for oversharing, but Ethan shook his head. "Do not apologize. People rarely talk about real things anymore." Everyone. When her phone buzzed with a message from the restaurant reminding her of the evening shift, she stood up. "I should go. It is my double day." He nodded, then reached into his coat pocket. "Wait," he said, handing her a folded card. "If you ever need help finding suppliers for your cafe idea, call this number. It is one of our company's partners. Tell them I sent you." Mia hesitated. "I cannot take that. I do not even know if I will ever open that cafe." Ethan looked at her steadily. "Then consider it a promise to yourself. Every dream starts with one person taking it seriously." She took the card carefully, feeling the raised lettering beneath her fingertips. Cole Enterprises, Distribution Division. As he walked away, she realized he had not told her what he actually did for the company. She only knew he carried himself with quiet confidence, as if he had nothing to prove. That night, at the Ashbourne, Mia worked her shift as usual. The restaurant glowed under soft chandeliers, the hum of conversation surrounding her like music. Near the end of the night, she turned and saw Ethan at his usual table. This time, he was not alone. An older man in a gray suit sat beside him, clearly someone of importance. She approached to refill their glasses, careful not to spill a drop. The older man said, "Ethan, are you sure about this expansion plan? Your father might not approve." Ethan replied calmly, "It is not about approval. It is about doing what is right for people who keep this place running." Mia froze for a second. "Your father." The words echoed in her mind. He was not just part of the company, he was the family behind it. She set the bottle down gently and stepped back, pretending she had not heard. As she walked away, her chest tightened. The pieces began to connect, but she refused to believe them fully. Maybe she was wrong. Maybe she had misunderstood. Later that night, as the restaurant emptied, Ethan passed by the counter where she was wiping glasses. "Mia," he said softly, "would you like to grab a coffee sometime? Nothing fancy. Just a real cup, not from this place." Her heart skipped. "Sure," she said after a pause, "but only if I get to pay for mine." He smiled. "Deal." When he left, Mia touched the business card in her pocket. The gold letters shimmered faintly under the light. It felt unreal, like her world was slowly widening, one conversation at a time. She did not know that their next meeting would change everything she thought she knew about him and herself. The next week felt lighter than usual. Spring air had settled over the city, and the world outside the Ashbourne seemed a little brighter, as if something good were quietly waiting to happen. Mia finished her morning job at the flower stall, changed into her uniform, and walked to the restaurant with a calm she had not felt in months. When she stepped inside, the manager called her over. "Mia, table 6 needs a private server tonight. The guests requested someone dependable. That means you. She nodded quickly, trying to hide her nerves. Private sections often meant wealthy clients, the kind of people who could make or break your shift with a single glance. But when she approached table 6, her steps faltered. Ethan was there. He stood to greet her. No suit tonight, just a simple dark sweater and a quiet smile. "Good evening," he said. "Do you mind working my table again?" Mia blinked. "Your table? You reserved it?" "Guilty," he said lightly. "I thought it was fair since you gave me free advice about cleaning tables the other night." She tried not to smile. "I suppose that makes us even." As she poured his water, Ethan gestured to the empty chair opposite him. "You can sit for a moment if you want. It is not busy yet." She hesitated. The dining room was quiet, the hum of conversation distant. For once, the manager was not watching. She sat, hands folded neatly in her lap. Ethan asked, "How is your mother?" Mia looked surprised. "She is stable, thank you. The treatments are expensive, but we are managing." He nodded, his expression soft. "You work harder than most people I know." "It is what people do when they do not have another choice," she replied. "Work keeps me hopeful." The waiter from another section passed by, dropping off a small dish, a dessert Ethan had ordered earlier. It was a chocolate tart, decorated with a single white flower. He pushed it gently toward her. "Try it," he said. "It is too good to eat alone." Mia shook her head. "I cannot. It is for you." Ethan's eyes held hers. "Then consider it a tip in advance." Reluctantly, she took a forkful. The sweetness melted on her tongue, richer than anything she could ever afford. She laughed softly. "You are right. That is dangerous." For a few moments, the world around them disappeared. It was not a date, not exactly, but something fragile and real was building between them. Later, after her shift, they met again outside the restaurant. The city lights shimmered across wet pavement, and the night air smelled faintly of rain. Ethan offered to walk her to the subway. "You do not have to," she said, but he only smiled. "I know." They walked side by side, their footsteps in rhythm. She told him about the first sketch she ever sold, a quick drawing of a street musician for $20. He told her about studying abroad, about how wealth sometimes made people forget who they were meant to be. At the corner, they stopped. A street performer was playing a saxophone under a flickering street lamp, the notes floating up like smoke. Ethan turned to her. "Do you ever think about leaving the city?" "Sometimes," Mia said. "But New York feels alive, even when it hurts. It reminds me that I am still trying." He nodded slowly. "Trying is what keeps us human." When the train arrived, Mia stepped onto the platform and turned back to wave. Ethan lifted a hand in return, his face warm beneath the dim light. That night, as she rode home, Mia felt something unfamiliar rising inside her. Not love, not yet, but the quiet comfort of being seen. Someone finally looked at her not as a struggling waitress or a tired daughter, but as a person with dreams worth hearing. What she did not know was that Ethan had made a promise to himself that evening, to find a way to help her without taking away her pride. And that promise would soon be tested in a way neither of them could have imagined. 2 weeks later, the Ashbourne prepared for the biggest night of the year. The restaurant had been chosen to cater the Cole Group's charity gala, a glittering event filled with New York's wealthiest guests. Every waiter and hostess was briefed, every glass polished until it sparkled. For Mia, it was just another shift until she saw the name printed on the event banner. Cole Group Annual Benefit Gala. Her breath caught. She told herself it was only coincidence, that Ethan might not even attend. But as the evening unfolded, the ballroom doors opened, and there he was, Ethan Cole, standing under the chandeliers, surrounded by journalists and executives. He wore a black tuxedo, speaking confidently to the crowd with his father beside him. The master of ceremonies announced, "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our new chief executive officer, Ethan Cole, heir to the Cole legacy." Applause thundered through the hall. Mia stood frozen near the catering station, her tray trembling in her hands. The man she thought was a humble, thoughtful friend was the very heir to the empire that owned the Ashbourne. She felt her heartbeat in her throat. Her chest tightened, her mind spinning. Every kind word, every smile, they all flashed through her memory, now tinted with doubt. When Ethan finished his speech, his eyes searched the room and found her. For a brief moment, their gazes locked. His smile faltered, replaced by something like fear. She turned away quickly, pretending to adjust the glasses on her tray. Later that night, as the guests mingled, she stepped out to the quiet corridor behind the ballroom. The noise of laughter and music faded into a low hum. She needed air. Footsteps echoed behind her. "Mia," Ethan's voice said softly. She did not turn around. "You should go back inside. Your world is waiting." He stopped a few feet away. "Please, let me explain." "Explain what?" she asked, finally facing him. "That the man I shared my dreams with was testing me? That the person I thought I knew does not even exist?" His voice lowered. "It was never a game. That night, when you mistook me for someone else, it was the first time anyone saw me without the weight of my last name. I did not correct you because I wanted to stay in that moment a little longer." Mia shook her head. "You had every chance to tell me the truth." "I know," he said quietly, "and I was afraid you would look at me differently." "I am looking at you differently now," she said, her voice trembling. "And it hurts." For a long second, neither spoke. The soft music from the ballroom floated through the door, distant and hollow. Ethan reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded napkin, the one she had drawn on the night they first met. The ink had faded, but the small heart above the coffee cup was still visible. "I kept it," he said, "because it reminded me what honesty looks like. I am sorry I did not live up to it." Mia stared at the napkin, her eyes stinging. "Some things cannot be fixed with an apology, Ethan." Then she turned and walked away, leaving him alone in the quiet hallway, the sound of his own name echoing like a truth he could no longer escape. Inside the ballroom, laughter resumed, champagne glasses clinked, and the crowd celebrated their young CEO. But Ethan Cole stood apart, holding a napkin that now felt heavier than any fortune he had ever inherited. The following days passed in silence. Mia stopped answering Ethan's messages. She quit her job at the Ashbourne, returning her uniform with a polite note that said only, "Thank you for the opportunity." The manager did not ask why. In places like that, people came and went quietly. Ethan tried to reach her several times. Each time his calls went to voicemail, each text left unread. He understood why she needed space, but the distance felt heavier than he expected. He had faced boardrooms filled with people twice his age, negotiated contracts worth millions, yet nothing had ever made him feel this helpless. In her small apartment, Mia spent her nights staring at the sketchbook she could not bring herself to open. The dream of Haven and Heart Café now felt foolish, something from another life. She avoided walking past the Ashbourne, afraid of memories that would flood back. The napkin he had once kept now existed only in her mind, a reminder of how easily hope could blur into heartbreak. One evening, her younger brother found her sitting by the window, lost in thought. "Are you sad about the restaurant?" he asked. She forced a smile. "Something like that." He nodded wisely for a 10-year-old. "Mom says people make mistakes because they are scared. Maybe he was scared too." The words lingered after he left the room. Mia wanted to believe them, but her pride would not let her forgive so easily. Meanwhile, Ethan buried himself in work. As the new chief executive officer, he was expected to project confidence, but inside he felt hollow. His assistant noticed the change, how he skipped meetings and stayed late in his office. One night, as the city lights glittered through the floor-to-ceiling windows, Ethan found himself scrolling through old photos on his phone. There it was, a snapshot of a napkin sketch of a coffee cup and heart. He closed his eyes and made a decision. 2 weeks later, Mia received a letter in the mail with no return address. Inside was a single card printed with an invitation. "You are warmly invited to the opening of Haven and Heart Café. Grand opening, Saturday at 10 in the morning. Her breath caught. The name was hers. She thought it must be a mistake. She arrived at the address printed on the card, a quiet corner on 5th Avenue, where a newly renovated storefront gleamed under fresh white paint. Through the window, she saw wooden shelves filled with books and a counter lined with steaming mugs of coffee. The sign above the door read in elegant letters, "Haven and Heart Café." And standing by the counter was Ethan. He was not in a suit this time. He wore rolled sleeves and an apron, holding a damp cloth in one hand. When he saw her, he froze, then smiled. "Welcome," he said gently. "Would you like a cup of coffee?" Mia's voice barely came out. "What is this, Ethan?" "It is your dream," he said. "I only helped build it. You drew it, you inspired it, and you deserve to see it come alive." Her eyes filled with tears. "You did not have to do this." "I know," he said. "But I wanted to make things right the only way I knew how." For the first time in weeks, Mia smiled, not because everything was perfect, but because something pure still remained between them, a belief in second chances. The first weeks at Haven and Heart Café passed in a blur of warm mornings and long nights. Mia arrived before sunrise to brew coffee and stayed late to clean the tables. The place quickly became a small sanctuary for neighbors, students, and taxi drivers who wanted quiet moments away from the city's noise. Every detail inside reflected her drawings: the soft cream walls, the row of donated books, the handwritten sign that said "Kindness served daily." Yet, every time she looked at it, she wondered if she deserved it. Ethan stopped by often, dressed casually, always helping without calling attention to himself. He would stack chairs, wash mugs, and sweep the floor after closing. But whenever he tried to talk about them, she kept her tone polite but distant. Gratitude was easier than forgiveness. One rainy afternoon, a glossy black car stopped in front of the cafe. A woman stepped out, elegant, sharp-eyed, the kind who carried power in her posture. She introduced herself as Victoria Cole, Ethan's stepmother, and the Cole Group's public relations director. "I suppose this is your doing," she said coolly, looking around the cozy space. "A charity project for one of your acquaintances?" Mia froze. "This cafe is my business. Ethan only helped set it up." "No." Victoria gave a faint smile that did not reach her eyes. "I see. Well, the board is not happy. The press already caught wind that our new chief executive officer is spending time funding personal ventures. It looks unprofessional." Ethan entered the cafe at that moment, his hair damp from the rain. "That is enough, Victoria," he said firmly. "This is not about publicity. It is about keeping a promise." She crossed her arms. "A promise to a waitress?" Ethan's voice remained calm. "A promise to a human being who reminded me why our company exists in the first place, to serve people, not numbers." Victoria's gaze hardened. "Your father will not approve." "Then he will have to disapprove," Ethan said. "Because I am not undoing what is right." She left without another word, but the echo of her heels against the floor left a chill in the room. Mia turned to him, her hands trembling slightly. "Ethan, you did not have to defend me like that." "Yes, I did," he said softly. "I will not let them turn something honest into shame." The following days were difficult. The tabloids printed headlines about the young billionaire and his hidden cafe, twisting the story into something scandalous. Reporters camped outside for photos, customers grew uneasy, and Mia could feel the weight of judgment creeping in. One night, after closing, she sat alone by the counter, staring at the empty chairs. The dream that had once felt safe now seemed fragile. When Ethan walked in, she finally spoke. "Maybe this was a mistake. I never wanted attention or rumors. I just wanted a simple place that was mine." He sat beside her. "Then fight for it, Mia. You built this with your hands. No article can take that away." Her voice broke. "But what if they shut it down?" "Then we start again," he said. "We build another. And another after that. Because the world always needs more places like this." His words settled deep inside her, quiet but firm. For the first time since the gala, she looked at him without anger. There was still pain between them, but beneath it, something stronger was taking root: respect, resilience, and the faint glow of love that refused to die. The storm around Haven and Heart Café lasted for days. Reporters lingered outside, snapping photos of customers and shouting questions whenever Ethan arrived. Online articles twisted every detail, calling the cafe a romantic vanity project and accusing Ethan of neglecting his corporate duties. Mia tried to keep the cafe running, greeting customers with steady hands even when her heart felt like it was breaking again. Each morning she told herself, just focus on the coffee, focus on kindness. But by the end of the week, sales had dropped, and several suppliers began to cancel orders. One evening, when she was locking up, she found Ethan waiting outside. His expression was serious, but not defeated. "They are planning to remove me from the board," he said quietly. "My father called an emergency meeting for tomorrow morning. They say I have become a liability." Mia's stomach twisted. Because of me? No, he said. Because I stopped pretending that profit matters more than people. I will not apologize for helping someone honest. Her eyes filled with tears. Ethan, you do not need to lose everything for me. He shook his head. This is not about losing. It is about choosing what kind of man I want to be. She wanted to say something, but her throat closed. All she could do was reach out and take his hand. A silent promise that she finally understood. The next morning, while the Cole Group's boardroom buzzed with whispers and accusations, Haven and Heart Café opened its doors as usual. Mia stood behind the counter, unsure what the day would bring. At 10 o'clock, the bell over the door rang, and people began to pour in. Regular customers, neighbors, college students, even strangers who had read the negative articles came to show support. Someone placed a sign in the window that read, "Kindness is not a scandal." At the same moment across town, Ethan faced the board. His voice was steady as he said, "If leadership means protecting image over integrity, then I will step down. But if it means standing up for what is right, then I am exactly where I belong." Silence followed. Then one of the senior members nodded slowly. "Let him stay," the man said. "We need more of that in this company." That afternoon, Ethan walked back into the cafe, tired but smiling. The place was full of life again. Mia met his eyes from behind the counter, and for the first time, there was no wall between them, only gratitude and quiet understanding. The cafe had survived. So had they. A full year later, Haven and Heart Café stood as a quiet miracle on Fifth Avenue. The shelves overflowed with books donated by customers, and the chalkboard by the door carried daily notes written in bright colors, messages of hope, gratitude, and love. Every morning, Mia arrived early to open the windows and let in the soft light that spilled across the tables. The place felt alive, warm, and honest, just as she had once drawn it on a napkin. That afternoon marked the cafe's first anniversary. A small crowd gathered to celebrate. Neighbors, friends, and even a few members of the Cole Group who had supported Ethan's reforms. The mood was simple, but full of joy. There were flowers on every table, and a little boy played the piano near the window, while people clapped along. Mia stood near the counter, watching it all with quiet disbelief. "We really made it," she whispered. Ethan stepped beside her, carrying a small wooden box. "You did more than make it, Mia. You turned a drawing into a home." He placed the box on the counter and opened it. Inside was the old napkin, the one with the sketch of a coffee cup and heart, framed behind glass. Underneath the drawing, a single line was engraved in silver. "Some mistakes are meant to happen." Mia's eyes shimmered with tears. "You kept it all this time." "I told you I would," he said gently. "It reminded me that truth begins where pride ends." She smiled through her tears. "So what happens next, Mr. Cole?" Ethan looked around the room filled with laughter and music. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. "I was hoping to ask the owner of this beautiful cafe to share a lifetime partnership with me." The crowd quieted as Mia gasped softly. Her hands trembled as he opened the box, revealing a simple ring shaped like a tiny heart. "Ethan," she said, her voice breaking, "you already gave me everything I ever dreamed of." "Then let me give you one more thing," he replied. "A promise that no mistake between us will ever end in regret." Tears fell freely as she nodded. "Yes, Ethan. 1,000 times, yes." Applause filled the cafe, and outside the window, sunlight broke through the clouds. Ethan slipped the ring onto her finger, then turned to hang the framed napkin on the wall above the counter. The camera of life would fade out there on two people standing together under warm light, surrounded by laughter, faith, and the soft aroma of coffee, proof that kindness, even when misunderstood, can change everything. And above them, the sign glowed proudly, "Haven and Heart Café, where mistakes become miracles."